So, welcome to a BIWOC Rising podcast in cooperation with Hammam Radio. First, warm welcome to my guests on the panel, to the audience who's listening. I'm really excited to hold this conversation today about body and empowerment dance and as empowerment and healing. And I have my guests here with me today, Lana and Cérise from the project BIWOC Rising here in Berlin, and our special guest and artist, Estela, who has been doing a workshop here yesterday as well. And maybe Lana, you can start and tell us a little bit about BIWOC Rising and how the workshop was for you. And then we will dive more into the artist's work.
Yeah, thank you, Saboura. So I'm Lana. I'm the project manager of BIWOC Rising. BIWOC Rising is an intersectional co-working and social club. We are open for Black, Indigenous, women of color, trans, inter, and non-binary people of color. So part of it is just offering a co-working space here in Berlin for this group. Many of us experienced other co-working spaces and we never felt comfortable in the places that Berlin offers. Lubna Masoudi, the founder of the project, pushed to create the space for a co-working space for BIWOC. That's one part of it. Another part of the project is the social club. And here it's all about community building, it's about empowerment. So we do work in the frame of dealing with racism and discrimination in the labor market, which, we will talk about the workshop yesterday. I mean, how voguing is part of dealing with discrimination and racism in the labor market. So it was empowering for me, like really empowering. Knowing the history behind it, even understanding the moves. That's not what I thought about voguing and ballroom. So I really enjoyed the workshop. But yeah, the original idea was, and I had a meeting with Estela and we talked about it. How is this voguing workshop connected to dealing with discrimination and racism in the labor market? And we were talking about like how we carry our bodies, how do I feel when I'm in a space in an office with white people? How do I feel when I'm in vis-a-vis the like white authority, white German authority? So for me personally, I feel that like my body physically like try to minimize itself, like try to take as less space as possible.
It kind of
Shrinks, exactly. Yeah, it really shrinks. And not just this, so I come from a culture where as a woman, you are trained to walk and like looking at the ground and like just walk, get home and go to work or go like directly. Sorry. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but this is how it is, which is a bit confusing because from one hand you're supposed to just like look down, don't look at other people. God forbid, like you look at other men. But on the other hand, you're supposed to attract like the right man, which is a really confusing message. And yesterday's workshop really helped me, like how much of it is psychologically in us. So yeah, this is how it fit, how voguing, how Estela's workshop fit into BIWOC Rising project.
It's really interesting what you said also about mixed messaging and how we carry those messages that we receive from society and from the outside in our bodies and our postures. And I think I forgot to mention my name. So I should say I'm Saboura Naqshband from within the team of BIWOC, but I also work with dance's empowerment method in something called transformative dance or like sort of freeform movement. And I have I've done a training the past 2.5 years to become a facilitator in this kind of freeform dance movement style in order to kind of have a more embodied practice in my workshop, in my anti-racism empowerment workshops. So that's kind of where I come into also focusing on dance and the body and the kind of liberatory potential it has. So it's really exciting for me also to learn more about your work. And so we'll continue with the Cérise. How did you? What impression did the workshop leave you with?
I would say what the workshop, I already knew a bit about voguing due to me having my first brilliant class with Adrian. I'd already told Estela about that.
Shout out Adrian.
Right? And having these moves, and then actually my muscle memory actually said no yesterday. It was more like, do not do this. You know what you're going to get yourself into. But at the same time, I knew that what I would gain out of it would be liberation. It would be freedom. It would be healing from these once again muscle memory of, as Lana had mentioned, society just pushing you down and not giving you the space or giving your muscles the energy it needs to stand up straight, to feel good, to embrace the path you walk every day. And so when I during the workshop yesterday, I really enjoyed how you also broke it down to make it tangible, and for every interestee that was there yesterday could leave the space with this feeling of vibrations that I knew that I had the last time. So that made me especially super excited, super happy about it. So thank you once again.
Thank you so much. Oh my god. I'm so happy, like literally making me blush. It actually felt, it's so nice that everybody felt the same, because when I left the house, I remember being like, oh my god, I feel like a little kid that's about to go play with their friends. Like that's the energy that I wanted to bring. But it's really hard to get it out of people sometimes, because like everybody said, there's so much tension within us that comes from negative interactions, or just like literally discrimination and being pushed down. So I wanted everybody to let loose as much as possible, and for me as well. So it was very important to me, the meditation session that we had before, because when you're in physical pain or emotional pain, you tend to not feel your body and like avoid feeling your body. And like even me, after today, I was like, like it's been a while since I worked with so many people, and like everybody had different stories. Like the conversations were amazing, and everybody had a different way of expressing their queerness and their identity within all the games that we did. So amazing. Like, yeah, I'm really grateful.
It was really fun. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so super that we got an impression sort of from the participant side, and what kind of what the space everybody took away from the space, and also yourself. You were just saying that sort of this playfulness and liberation that you felt inside of yourself, and I think the title was Dance as Empowerment and Healing.
Yes.
As empowerment healing, yeah.
Dance and movement as empowerment and healing, I think it was.
And also, it was interesting for me because you put healing and empowerment together.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, maybe in the beginning, just to know a little bit more about sort of your journey to dance and how it connects to both healing and also to empowerment. Like, what are the aspects that in your own journey to dance, have to do with those two elements?
Okay, it has everything to do. Like, it literally changed my way of thinking and everything, because, like, growing up, I always wanted to dance, but, like, there was no money for that. So it was just, like, me dancing in my room or, like, watching music videos or whatever. But it wasn't until early 2019 that I started working at a dance studio and getting free classes. And that's how I kind of, like, figured out my way around the money part. And once I saw voguing, it was like, it was immediately different. Like within all the other classes, even the dance school class, teacher was white. I'm not gonna say who it is, but it was like, wow, okay. And like everybody going there was white. And then the voguing class came in, and while it was still very homogenous and very German, the teachers that were given a chance to like showcase the art form were either trans or black most of the time, or all of the time. Yeah.
And this was here in Berlin?
This was here in Berlin, and I studied a lot with Ria Saint Laurent, who is one of the prominent teachers here. She's an Egyptian trans woman, and she taught me a lot. I really appreciate her. So it was like that way that I got into it. And
into voguing specifically?
Yeah, I went to voguing classes. Like I started with different things, trying out different things, like contemporary and jazz and all of this, and then I just went straight to voguing because it was so much more fun and like not so choreography based, but more like it has to be a freestyle. Like it can be a choreography, and that's what makes it different because it encourages everyone to think in the moment and to really feel themselves and what their body wants to do. Like it has elements that like you have to have like any other dance form, but the core of it is like you, right? And it made me less scared of being me. Like even going to university at the same time and having a lot of microaggressions, and it puts a dent on your self-esteem, so you need to find a place where you can celebrate yourself, and that's what it kind of did for me.
So this kind of like being in the moment, and also this like very strong individual self-expression, and is kind of what I think, especially with voguing, is so
Right.
prominent, like that you can really sort of show other people in your face with a kind of like a how to say, very present and very unashamed, unapologetic kind of energy,
Right,
like,
and
in your
just
face.
genuine, right? Because you can't be anything else when you're dancing, and I think that's where the empowerment and the healing come together, and like showing yourself and not being afraid to, and like even seeing yourself for the first time. That's where I think they both come together in that.
You started the talk by saying like you were trying to find a way to also like finance dancing
Yes.
courses, and I remember like also yesterday from the workshop, like it was so interesting to like to learn about it. Like you highlighted classism in voguing and
absolutely.
the difference between the U.S. and Europe, where like, if I understood correctly, like in the U.S. it's still mainly black dominated space. It's still mainly by the marginalized black trans sex workers, where here in Germany it's who can afford buying costumes, who can afford going to classes, who can afford teachers and so on. So it's really interesting how something starts with a specific history and then is taken away.
It's the cycle, isn't it? When all the black people come up with something, and then the white people are like, "Ooh, I like that. Let me take it, but make it different." And it's like, oh my God, there is so much classism here within the dance community overall. And voguing and ballroom culture is not about having the most expensive costume. It's about creativity. Like you could have hot glue and like a bunch of cut up pieces of fabric and still make it work and still get a grand prize, because it's not about that. And the reason why it's not about that is because the people it came from didn't have anything, right? So it's like that energy. When I went to New York, I kind of saw that energy in that, as you said, there were mainly black people there. Like, it was so beautiful to see so much black and so much dark skin representation specifically, because here you really don't see that, like, at all, at all, at all. And yeah, it also felt a little bit like ancestor work, because like the elders, right, the people that used to vogue in the 90s, they were there watching everybody. Like all the legendary people were still at this like really casual vogue event, right? And that makes the difference from here, where it's like, it's not the elders, you're not learning it in the street. It's really like, who has the money to take dance classes and classical dance classes, right? And many times when it comes to like judges making a choice between the contestants or something, they will pick the person with the cleanest spin, or like, something that doesn't really hit the core of what it is. And I think that's why New York Vogue is so good. It's so good because like it hits different. Like
it's also a community, right?
Exactly.
Like it's much more community based than just house based, or who has who in their house.
Yeah.
Then yeah.
Which very much connect to also, like, because you said like it's a not only like empowerment, healing, it's about voguing. It's very much this is something that also you emphasized yesterday, seeing the rest of us struggling with the movement and looking really awkward. But
I wish I'd been there.
You all learned so fast. I was so impressed by the end. I was like, wow, they get it. They get it. Like,
but that's it. This is what I wanted to say, like, because you said that it's not about choreography, it's about like you being creative and doing what you want.
Yeah.
But how can I be creative if I feel surrounded by, well, in Germany I would say like with white people, where I don't feel like comfortable to expose myself, because like for me dancing, everything to do with body is like exposing yourself.
Right.
And yesterday for me, knowing that like I'm among BIWOC, I'm among like I'm not judged, I can look awkward, I can look funny, and it's okay. So it really kind of you allow yourself to let go. So we tried your choreography. But we didn't. Yeah, I mean, it's not that we're going now to New York to some competition or something.
Not yet.
Our muscles are still aching too much. We won't even
So are mine. It doesn't go away, unfortunately.
Okay, good to know.
Yeah.
But
it's interesting because you were saying that, in New York, the judges basically are the ancestors, the people who started the voguing movement, or people who have the original, where it originates from, basically. And I wonder how that is in Germany. Like, that really probably does something to also that the voguing spaces here, depending on, is it going to, are there any measures to like keep it in the community kind of thing, or how do you how does it feel to you here in Berlin in comparison to other places maybe where you've been voguing?
Right.
Or what can be done to keep it in the community?
Yeah, I feel like voguing started out as community care, like people just caring for each other and like helping each other through tough times and like really bad, really bad living situations. Because it started from mainly people who were in jail and that would look at the Vogue magazines, or sex workers, or just people in marginalized positions, basically, that had to create their own space. And then when you translate it to a German context and living here and learning it here specifically, I realized that, okay, a lot of people are being given chances, but the people at the top are white. Like, the people that have the resources, that create the events, that create the spaces. It's changed now a little bit. It's getting there. But when I started, there was no BIPoC only session, for example, or all of the classes would be very expensive, and there would be like a competitive air, which Vogue definitely has, like absolutely, and there's so much beauty in that. But it didn't feel like community care somehow, because one, it's gate kept, and two, the communication and the relationship that you have to the art form is different. Like, your relationship to your teachers is different. It's not like you're learning it in the park from someone or things like this. Yeah, so I think it's quite commercial here. It's been commercial for a long time, but it's really about who has the resources, obviously white German people. And
And
been like that.
do you see ways in which the community is trying to take it back, or like I
Yes.
guess maybe yesterday was such a when you
Yeah.
had the workshop is kind of a way to reclaim what is originally yours, basically, and also is also kind of goes back to Black knowledges, Black feminist spaces, and knowledges that are inside of the embodiment of those spaces and those movements. So yeah, do you think there is a way to kind of to open a conversation about also with the white people that are or maybe without them, I don't know.
You got that one. Actually, we just started a BIPoC voguing session I think it's like every other Friday, with Lucy Lyons, Lucy Gucci, Christopher Saint Laurent, Rico Louboutin. Oh my god, I'm saying everybody's board name. Hey, if you're listening, see you at the workshop. See you. Actually, it's not a workshop; it's a session, which makes it even better because everybody's just doing their own thing. And if they want to learn something, they just go up to someone who's dancing, and it's like, hey, how do you do that, right? So it like connects people in a different way than like a class or a choreography or whatever, because like it like people just make friends with each other rather than it being like a hierarchical white supremacist system where it's like looking up at each other or down, and it feels really nice, and I'm so glad that it exists now, even though it just started like this year.
I even feel like the movie Pose, of course, a majority of mainstream knows that movie. I think that even with that, like a lot of things, the Americans have watched it, they're over it, and they can refer to it, and then it swoops over to Germany, and then now that then everybody that has watched it is certainly in the in circle, and they have to suddenly all vogue, right? And so that was like, I feel when that series came out, a lot of things just exploded.
Yes.
And so the more capitalists, of course, the way they work, whoever was able to afford classes from prominent dancers or dancers were able to say, okay, we can do this. I can teach classes. La la la. Have you seen this on?
Right. Okay. Sorry, I need to pause for a second. That was a lot of information.
When was this kind of explosion? How old is the movie?
I think
now?
It was I think it came out 2020.
Could be,
right? Or like late 2019.
Yeah.
And I think voguing becomes more commercial as time goes. But yeah, that was a big boom in like clothing companies wanting to have like commercials with people at Vogue, and like a lot of photo shoots happening, and yeah, just like selling things through like this image of voguing. But like the people that get chosen, of course, are majority white or German or both, right? Like it's really a whole ladder that if you don't have these Yu-Gi-Oh cards, it's really hard. But yeah, I really like the cast of Pose, and I really like that they got a spotlight, and the fact that they are all actually in ballroom, like because yeah, it can get murky with these Netflix things. So representation, great, but the way that it's taken in, at least here in Germany, where people didn't know that much about it, I don't know. It still feels white supremacist.
I would say not only not knowing commercializing it, but like I really I liked it yesterday how you took like all these movements that we practiced together, from the ballroom to how do I walk in the street. Like I would have never thought like, it's not that, like if I learn voguing, it's not that I'm gonna vogue in the street, but yes, I am gonna vogue in the street in a sense of not vogue, but like you showed us like how like if you're walking and how men tend to take spaces, or like how they want your attention, and how you in a way you vogue your way out of it, but still kind of keeping yourself safe as well.
with a bit of
Yes.
old school
A little bit of old school style. Yeah.
If you want to make space.
Yeah.
It's like taking space, like showing them in a way that how did you put it, like you will not get my attention,
Absolutely.
and
Yes.
I will take the space. You will not get my attention, and then like f off. It is radio, so maybe children are listening.
Let's remember. Yes.
Yeah, I really liked it. That it's so yeah, if we are talking about like white people like taking it, commercializing it, but like they are not only losing the spirit, but losing how this could be like a practical methods for like a daily empowerment, like for it started with like you said, in prison, sex workers, but like even for me, just like as a woman of color, just a woman of color who's walking to work, crossing in areas where there would be more men, or areas where it would be more white people. You even gave an example of like in the U-Bahn, how certain white people was kind of come with this what is the word, entitlement. Exactly. It's like that's my space. Like no, it's not. And without telling them no, it's not, without going into confrontation. So I really like those methods that you gave us, those like practical tools.
Right.
For every person, a person of color, a woman of color, walking here in the streets of Berlin, to feel safe.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you.
I feel like oh, you're so right. I feel like voguing was made for survival in the first place, and to like kind of combat white supremacy to begin with. And what I find so beautiful is like the history. Like you can break down what each movement was for, right? So when you were talking about walking down the street, I'm not even just talking about voguing, just like ballroom culture in general. It's about holding your head high, about being proud of who you are, and not just that, but like not let anybody f with you, basically. And what I was talking about yesterday was like this microaggressions that literally happen every day, multiple times a day. You know, like just walking down a street and like a man walking diagonally towards you just to try to bump shoulders with you. I think it even happened to me twice today. You know, like it's really every day. So I have noticed that there are points in ballroom and like where it comes from that match how to, in a way, minimize this energy, because you can't get rid of it, but like there is something about just walking down the street, head held high, feeling your body, keeping your space no matter what. Like if someone bumps into me, I bump into them because I'm not gonna get out of my own way, basically. And I think a lot of these microaggressions are just like asking for your attention in a way, like especially the staring, and especially the urban interactions that can get really weird and feel very unsafe. Um, so it's hard because you kind of want to like fight, flight, or freeze, and like everything feels bad in a way. Like when you confrontate, feels bad. When you don't confrontate, you're like, oh, why didn't I say that? And then when you freeze, it's like, oh my god, like what? Right.
So how do the practices, because Lana, you were mentioning it earlier as well, like the certain movements and certain kind of ideas and
well,
concepts.
In radio, it's quite we need to show you,
right?
Like that you can kind of use, or like everything has meaning also to it. Like, can you tell us a little bit about like what are the elements that you took away from it, or that you wanted to bring in or present?
Well, I guess the mainly like keeping your head up, which sometimes like, it sounds so like cliche, keep your head up, but sometimes you forget about it.
You really do. And jaw tension. You know, like every time you get like, you know, like flashed up from these situations, you tend to clench here, and that also can lead to more stress. But anyway,
exactly. Just like this way of walking, again, it's hard to describe with the words, but this walking confident, even if like in a way I feel kind of playing with my own minds. Like even if I'm not confident, I'm gonna play confident.
Exactly. Yeah.
I'm gonna play confident, and so the others think that I am confident, even if
You
I'm like
manifest
have
it.
no confidence
Yes.
in my work, in myself.
Mhm.
Already kind of physically, we saw it like yesterday again with the movements, how
Mhm.
you really take space. I mean, your body is the same size. It
Right.
remained the same size, but
Yes.
it's weird how like a certain pose
Mhm.
suddenly makes this body big to take the
Right.
space, or it can really minimize it and make it small.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing how it's the same I'm the same body,
Mhm.
but with different poses I can take different spaces.
Right. Yeah.
Which I really
So it has kind of something to do with the energy that you.
I guess.
Yeah, I was
What
about
would
to
you
tell you, I think you're remembering power poses, which
Yeah.
was like one of the portions that we were doing on like how does a pose feel like truly, like how does it make you feel like if you're holding your shoulders together and like putting your back, like rolling your back forward and like making yourself small, how does that feel physically versus if you have like back straight, hands up, like
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And it really does feel different. Like power poses are very important, and it is the core of Vogue because it used to be called posing, not Vogue, right? Um, so it's really interesting that you remember that. And I was trying to break it down into a queer context as well. So I was like also thinking about the archetypes of things that are considered feminine or masculine in a physical type of sense, because like especially trans people, oh, non-binary, shout out, they, them, I forgot to say. um, Especially trans people can go through a lot of dysphoria, and kind of like making fun of these archetypes and these stereotypes and being like, no, you can be different, right? Like you can be femme and walk mask, whatever that means, right? And that also makes you kind of like more aware and be like, okay, how do I walk as me? Like, right? Like that was one of the exercises with it where like you would do one portion where you're walking as a caricature of a man and just like make fun of them, right? And then you would do the opposite of like what you, because like everybody there was femme, so what you've been raised up to be like, make fun of that, right? So we did both of them, and then we did find your own walk, which was really amazing.
So it's a little bit like drag, a little bit also. Like
A little bit. I was about to say, like, it's so amazing because I learned it from Venus Boys, and we did a workshop with them. Drag, they're a drag house. They're very cool, and they taught me that game. So it also felt a little bit like not even ancestor work, but like somehow like carrying on the knowledge, and like spreading it out, and yeah, like making people feel good with it and learn what it's trying to teach.
You're also a drag performer or
Yeah.
drag artist as well. How does it like we've talked a little bit about like dance practices as empowerment and healing. I was wondering how the drag performance comes into it as well, because I've seen a lot of your photos and works on Instagram or Facebook, and I was
Yeah.
wondering how, because you have both those elements, dance and drag, and you were just saying about how it kind of relates also to your queerness and your playing with femininity, masculinity, and
Yeah.
how that kind of is also maybe a healing tool.
Oh my goodness, I'm one of those drag queens.
Yay! I love queens.
I'm one of those drag queens that's like everything is drag. Everything you do is drag. Like you're playing a character, like archetypes and things, and it's like, yeah, it's really been like doing drag. I was like, what do I like more, like drag or ballroom? Now I can't pick because it's really exposed a different part of myself, in that I can exist outside of the binary and truly like bring in both sides of myself and express myself just in a different way. When I do a drag show, I usually write down my own script and I would lip sync to my own lyrics. So it's very much poetic and less body, but I do. No, actually, I crawl on the ground and everything. Stop it. Yeah, it's power poses. It's having fun. It's making fun of stereotypes of the daily life and like finding joy in that almost, and just like I don't know. I'm an alien type of drag queen. I'm not. That's why I'm not either of drag creature. And that even is breaking down gender, right? Because if you're a creature, you don't fit into either or. So it's really been a way for me to explore that. I started a little bit recently, but it's been really empowering for me. Yeah.
Is it something that you also do workshops with, or is it more the dance?
Right. Yeah, I teach Vogue like to my friends all the time, but I think this has been the first time that I teach so many people like that, and it's been really, really amazing.
And the drag is kind of more like your performance work.
Yeah, I've gone to a lot of workshops, but I haven't taught a drag workshop. That would be really fun.
Not yet.
Yeah.
It sounds like vogue, pose, so many new terms that I'm also learning here. Drag, like it's all about kind of uh, being aware of your body. I mean, not that I'm not aware of my body, but for a long time, like I come maybe from a certain culture that yeah, your body is not yours. It's not for you.
Right.
Like you, even our belly dancing,
You were taught
it's all
everything,
about
right?
like seducing the other. Like I don't dance for me, which yeah, it's like this explaining this movements. Like every movement of course has an explanation, and like you do this to inside this to do that. That's from one hand. On the other hand, like a lot of this dancing happen only among women, like when women celebrate and when women are together in weddings and in parties and celebrations where it's all about women. But even when it's all about women, it's showing to the other, and it's never like just for me, like
Right.
just yeah, that I dance, that my body is for me, and it's not a tool to attract a certain partner or yeah, seduce this other person or to yeah, it's not just a tool, it's me. And
Right.
this is something that like I felt that your workshop kind of highlight this idea of like owning my own body.
Right.
So be it from dancing to the way I walk, to not think of my body just as a tool for something else or someone else, but for me,
Yeah.
and
for your
yeah,
own pleasure,
appreciate
for your own pleasure in a way.
exactly,
No?
yeah, pleasure.
Yeah, I mean this thing of like being taught something, right? But not like in a context where it's like you have to be this way. Like if you're a woman, this is what a woman is, and you play this all the time, right? And maybe that's what you felt when you would be in the situations where it's like, oh, we're all women here, but like, why is everybody sticking to these like rules and guidelines of like being seductive or whatever that means, you know, because you can be seductive and be confrontational and be big and be outside of the grid, I guess.
You don't have to just follow like a femme idea of being seductive. Like you can also be, let's say, you don't have to have this like kind of passive.
Exactly.
What do you say? Decoration type of seduction, but you can also be more how to say proactive and pursuing something, right? Like also as woman or as a queer person,
which makes you also embrace
gender.
your body no matter what your body is. Like you don't need to be size 36, you don't need to be 1 meter 70, you don't need like whatever your body is, because it's no longer a tool for someone else or something else, it's for you. You just enjoy it the way it is. I mean,
right.
Yeah,
I guess it goes back also to the origin of Vogue in a way that, you know, maybe you can explain it better how like it started with the fashion like kind of from what I understood, like an imitation of like catwalks or fashion highways, runways.
Right.
Also, like especially like looking at it from like a body positive aspect, or also how the trans and non-binary people kind of claim that for themselves, and um, how did it happen in the beginning? Maybe for those who don't know so much about the voguing history.
I feel like Vogue is really create your own reality, and because okay, there are so many different elements of Vogue, but I feel like the pioneers are Black trans women, right? And having no access, like being so marginalized, especially within the US in the 60s and 70s, because like Vogue started in the 50s, or like ballroom culture, not Vogue, because it wasn't called Vogue. So Vogue in the 50s was very mixed. It was a lot of like drag and posing and runway, right? There's still a lot of drag artists that are in ballroom, but not as many today. Like it was very 50-50. And then on the 60s and 70s, it was mainly gay Black men and trans Black women, right? Um, so what I mean when I say create your own reality is that most of the trans women that pioneered this is something that Ria told me, when they didn't have money for like hip surgery, they would like implement that into their dance, for example, because like catwalks, the way that it's walked now, like the way that element works in general is about really the hip movement and pushing out the hip in a way that is like so unnatural for most people, and took me like 2 years to even get right, because they wanted this figure, right? So and then the mask categories, they also like push out their shoulders a lot, and it's very like martial arts. So it really is create your own reality. Back to the history, there are 3 types of Vogue, which is like old way, where is where everything came from, and that is where people would stand at the pier in New York or anywhere really, and have like a Vogue magazine, and then someone would do like a clicking camera something, and they would pass a page, pass a page, pass a page, and then the person in front would try to imitate the poses, and from there they started just like dancing because it was like a beat, right? And also very martial arts inspired. And then after that came Vogue Femme, right? Because like all the trans women, they were voguing a lot, but old way is very static, and they wanted a more fluid yin energy to go with it, so they just went ham and created a whole beast. Oh my goodness. It's not called a death drop, it's called a dip. and then new way is kind of like old way, where it's very much about being stretchy, and yeah, don't know that much about that one. That was out of my field. But that was a little history trivia part that's really like create your own body, right? Because all of these poses were trying to, or like were or like your own reality, bringing you into this world that you weren't allowed to be in, like Vogue magazine, for example, or a runway, right? And it's like creating a space where you are safe and you're being seen just like you would if you were in those places, without the money, right? Without the resources, but the feeling of community and of being seen was there.
Yeah, I just find it really super interesting also from like a body positive or fat positive perspective, because all the voguing and ballroom videos I've been watching, especially when I was like even more into it, I was always so amazed how many large bodies were in there just completely doing their thing.
Yeah.
And I never see this in white spaces ever.
Yeah.
Or what type of dance. I mean, only like rarely recently there are some like dancers maybe who come up, but it shows how much how to say discrimination and stereotyping there is also around bigger bodies, and how much we internalize this kind of like a fascist white norm.
Yeah,
that everybody
literally,
has to be like,
it's white supremacy.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I was just so amazed how everybody could take up, like, was given the chance, at least, like, I mean,
Yeah.
when do we get the chance to even show ourselves truly, or to shine in our own individuality and our own sense of sensuality?
Yeah, exactly.
What you were saying also earlier. I mean, we talked already a little bit about like this relation between individual liberation and collective liberation, but I was wondering how you, like, what your perspective is on this, because in I can totally resonate also with the classism aspect in white trans spaces. I mean, this thing that I did was kind of, this training that I did is also more like, in this kind of field of, like, I don't know what you want to call it, alternative hippie, very white dominated kind of,
Yeah.
for just, kind of it uses a lot of our music, I would say, like a lot of the music of the global south, a lot of like
Oh, they sure
music
do.
of
Yeah. I know the
also
ones you're talking about.
yeah.
Whew.
And they're also like largely, unfortunately, now there are some openings now to bring people together and so on, but it's still very white dominated as well. So in that training, I was, I think, the only person of color, and there were like 9 white cis women.
Ooh.
And it was so interesting because it was so contrary. Like when they were dancing, it was more about their bodies kind of had to open up to being more in the collective, and like moving towards each other, even noticing each other, kind of thing. And for me, I grew up in the Muslim context or community. We kind of grow up, in these big families and these like big structures. Everybody's like on top of each other, and we are very physical with each other and all these things.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that problem. I realized that as a woman of color, as a queer person of color, I kind of, and also as a Muslim feminist, I kind of need to reclaim space just to be even on my individual, like in my individual space. I went into the direction that I felt like, okay, empowerment for me means that I take up more individual space. And in a way, for them, it was liberation. For them meant to learn how to relate to the community and to the collective again.
Yeah.
So I mean, this, it's very it's very much in 2 boxes. Like every one of us as individuals also had their own expressions and so on. But I found it interesting that for me that was kind of empowerment meant in a way more reclaiming more space for myself. So I was wondering how you see liberation and empowerment in your work, and also in the work with other BIPoC and
Yeah.
QT BIWOC, in the sense that do you feel like how does the individual and the collective relate to each other in the body space?
Right.
Yeah.
You made some really good points there. Like, good to hear you all talk. I'm really grateful. I was thinking about what you said about bigger people not being excluded from the art form, and how that correlates into community care and the well-being of the individual. And I feel like they're all connected, right? Because body movement and vogue and where it started from, it's really about like owning the where you are, owning your vessel, right? And like when that's appreciated, it does something, especially in the context of white supremacist dance culture, which, yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Like, I mean, not exactly, because we're very different people, but like, just reminded me of all the contemporary classes I've taken. Jesus Christ. Woo! It's that energy. And I feel like as long as there are people excluded, the community can't heal, because it doesn't translate. Like, how can you have community and exclude? It doesn't go together. And as long as more and more marginalized or otherized people are seen, the more that the community heals, because like you really learn from each other to accept each other, right? And it does something. Like, I feel like within communities where you have like free workshops, or they're really going out there to protect each other, it creates a link that is, I would say, that is love. It might sound cringe, but when you have love flowing back and forth within individuals in one community, and like everybody feels liberated because it's like every type of body accepted, you know, like talking about voguing so much, but let's go. Like it's not ableist at all. And there are so many 90s icons who had just different bodies. Like there was a house father, don't remember his name right now, but I told this story yesterday as well, that got shot in the back. And then he couldn't vogue anymore, but he would do it anyway, and like would go in like in his wheelchair and be like, yeah, let's go. And they made a category just for him, which is called hands performance and like arms control. And like he won grand prize every time because he was like a genius, right? And I just feel like having those moments, it brings people together somehow. Like the well-being of the individual heals everyone, right?
I find it like this individual and collective thing. Sometimes it's really hard to come into terms with it, because I understand what you mean, because I also, like, I grew up in a Muslim Arabic culture where the community is in a way imposed on you. Like, you don't always choose it. They are there. And it's clear that you will take care of your sister. You will take care of your niece and nephew. You will you will go bring the food to whatever neighbor who's sick, or it's clear. It's it's, of course it's required, but it's clear that it's required. That you don't ask them, you don't doubt it, you don't. And maybe coming here to Europe, for me, I needed this, like, okay, I just need to be Lana. Like, not the daughter of the neighbor of the wife of the sister, of just to be the individual, and have the space for this individual. So I would never want to replace myself with a white person. I'm very grateful for this imposed community, because I mean, yeah, it made me who I am. But yeah, sometimes we do need this space of, like, I just want to be me, empower me. Not that I don't care about the community anymore, but I need space. I need a moment to pause and pause and pause and like to just be me. But yeah, I mean, especially in the POC community, there is a sense of yeah, in a way, like how we grew up, like you have to take care of the other. I mean, it's not a choice, and I'm glad that it's not a choice. I hope others also who think about it, like, no, you don't have a choice. If your sister, your brother is needs you, you're there.
Yeah.
No matter what.
But
it's
that you're not like like your body and your spirit and your energy is not always accessible and available to everybody around you all the time. That you also get your own space sometimes. And I think this is like a general feature of sexism in society generally, that care work is basically only done by or mostly done by women of color, by queer queer community is kind of excluded from that in general. And but the body of the woman, in a sense, or the mother, or everyone who's like caring in community is always accessible and always like doesn't get a space to breathe in a way. And in a way, this kind of space for complete like self-expression, you kind of really show your finger to the patriarchy, because that's basically what they don't want. This is what capitalism doesn't want. This is what racism doesn't want. They don't want us to heal. They don't want us to be well, as you said, or to love each other, to love ourselves, or to love each other. So I think yeah, all those points really connect to each other really beautifully. And also yeah, I think, at the end of the day, it's all about love and care, and this is what mostly we don't get in these societies, or in the way that society is oppressive and works in this moment, at the moment. And also something that we try to how to say, challenge through spaces like BIWOC Rising and through ballroom culture and knowledges. And maybe just the last question to wrap up our wonderful podcast today. We went really deep into it. One last question for every one of you. We'll start with you. So we all know that the revolution will not be televised, but do you think it will be danced?
Let's start. Yeah.
Let's go. Oh my
Listen to my high
goodness.
heels. I mean, yeah. Without hope, there is no life. Without life, there is no hope. That's the Arabic saying, "La haya bala amal," and there's always hope for the better. And this is what we're doing here. I mean, if we all give up, then yeah, just like stay in bed, which we do have also those moments where it's like, I don't want to leave bed. I just want to be there. But then knowing that like I come here, I work with women of color, I work for BIWOC. It's yeah, it makes this coming in the snow like today like worth it and fun.
And also not just taking your head, but also your body with
Exactly,
with it.
exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Cool. Cérise.
Oh, what can I say? I do feel that as the topic rung, that community is healing, and that only with community we can actually heal correctly and intensely and actually generationally. So I feel dance and embodiment and everything that has to do with the body is definitely 100% needs care, needs attention, and needs to be carried on to 2022.
Nice. Yeah.
100%. I feel like such an amazing question, by the way. Oh my god. Like you coming in hot with that and like having ownership towards your body and towards yourself is already fighting the white supremacist, patriarchal, racist structure because like you all said, that's what they aim to take ownership of, like of your body, of your choices, of the way you feel, like the way you feel, literally, what you feel, what you think of yourself. So the revolution is gonna be danced. 100%. 100%.
Great. Okay. Thank you so much for this wonderful talk. Thank you for BIWOC Rising and Lubna and the whole team. And yeah, I hope you enjoy listening to this talk. And don't forget to dance because it's the way to liberation, right?
Yes.